So tell me a little bit about what State Street has been doing here, using your voice and your vote, I understand, to try and bring about change in terms of women in boardrooms. How successful has that been?
Yeah, thank you, and good morning, Anna and Manus. Happy International Women's Day to everyone. Yeah, so we have really been busy this past year, and we've been both engaging with companies and voting with companies. We have been monitoring over 750 companies on the level of diversity, or they didn't have any women on boards. And we've been very happy that in a year, it's been a very impactful year for us, because we've had over 25% of those companies, close to 150 companies with no women on boards, add a woman on board, and 34 of them have actually said that they will be committed to adding a woman on board within a year.
Tell me a little bit, Rakhi, about ESG issues and getting them to the C-suite in an era of President Trump. So some people have suggested that these issues have got more prominence because of the way that President Trump has behaved around certain ESG issues. But what's your thinking? Do you sense that corporates are more or less open to talk about this at the moment?
Yeah, I think really there has been a shift in how investors are perceiving risk. And I think the environmental and social risks are becoming coming more to the forefront. And we as investors are also learning how to price these risks. I mean, there's a lot of work to be done as yet, but that's what's happening, the availability of data, and that's the starting point. So our engagement really is to understand practices as well as getting data so that we can price this risk accurately into our decision-making process. And I think with the understanding of risk and actually seeing more evidence of issues of climate change and how that impacts whether it is hurricanes or the occurrence of hurricanes and the frequency of hurricanes, or it is the flooding on coastal lines, etc., or changing patterns. I think that's where we're getting a lot more, where the demand is and the push for more E&S issues are coming up.
What kind of, I mean, surely there are studies that show more diverse boards simply do better financially as far as their sales, especially if they're a large company that needs to give a product out to a broad group of people. At what point does the market start rewarding those kinds of good financial decisions?
Yeah, and I think really diversity is a long-term issue, and to make change. And there was a study which said that, you know, adding women on boards, really it's about breaking up that groupthink. It's about creating a new risk, a way of looking at risk within the boardroom, because women look at risk differently than men do. And I think that is where the long-term returns come from. So I think it's companies are, I mean, evidence shows that in the long term, companies with more women do outperform companies with no women or with less women on their boards. So I think that's evidence enough that you will have that there needs to be more diversity. And we believe that actually adding diversity of thought, whether it's gender, racial, and ethnic diversity, does improve board quality because it make boards stronger.
I know that you mentioned climate change there, Rakhi, and what you're trying to do with boards around climate change. You also say in your notes that many boards lack the knowledge and experience around planning for climate risks. Where do you see that most acutely? Where are you concerned that boards are not aware of the climate risks that lie ahead?
Yeah, so we've been engaging on climate issues for over 4 years now, and what we have found is that there is a lot of awareness or desire to learn more about climate risk. I think what we're trying to do is price climate risk, and I think that's where some of the boards are struggling. When you think about the way we think of risk, it's about probability and cost, right? And if you were to tell a board what are your top 5 risks? Because of the probability issue, sometimes these risks don't come up. But these are long-term risks that we do have to price. So I think when you look at a time horizon issue and you say, what are your some of your biggest risks from a macro perspective or not specifically company specific, that's when boards are starting to look at it. Now, they do need more education. There needs to be more work to be done as to how the risk and exploration of how this risk is going to impact the particular company in a particular sector and a particular region. But by and large, I think boards are starting to look at it. And obviously, it's more prevalent in some of the sectors rather than all sectors. But we do know climate risk impacts all sectors.
Yeah, I know that financial disclosures around this has been something that Bloomberg has worked on and certain other bodies around the world. Rakhi Kumar, thank you very much, Head of ESG Investments and Asset Stewardship at State Street Global Advisors.